Welcome to The Explainer. Ever wonder why some folks are just completely wiped out by scrolling through a feed of 500 connections, but they absolutely thrive on a 2 a.m. phone call with their one best friend? It's a pretty fascinating contrast. Today, we're unpacking the psychology behind people who prioritize intense, intimate connections over broad networking. We're going to explore the actual mechanics of this laser-focused approach to building relationships, and why, for some, it is literally the only way to navigate the social world. Okay, let's dive into this. Why do some people prefer a few close friends over a massive social network? It's a question that comes up all the time, right? Especially nowadays. I mean, we live in an era that is completely obsessed with metrics. Your follower count, your network connections, how many people showed up to your event. Society often looks at someone with a tiny, tight-knit group of friends and just assumes they're missing out. There's this unspoken pressure that if you aren't working the room, you lack social skills. But the source material we're looking at today completely flips that assumption. Preferring a small circle isn't a social deficit. It's not shyness. It's a highly specific, deeply ingrained psychological preference. It's an active, deliberate choice about how to manage your finite emotional energy. Which brings us directly to our central concept: small circles, deep roots. Think about a massive oak tree for a second. The canopy is huge, it's visible, and yeah, it looks really impressive from a distance. But those leaves, they vanish the second winter hits. Casual connections are exactly like those leaves. They come and go when you change jobs, move to a new zip code, or just shift into a new season of life. Deep roots, though, they're mostly unseen. They're highly concentrated, working quietly beneath the surface, and they are what actually keep the organism alive when a massive storm rolls in. This psychological preference is all about bypassing those temporary leaves and focusing entirely on cultivating the roots. It's an investment strategy where you swap visibility for absolute stability. So let's look at where this preference bumps up against the modern world. In Section 1, the friendship quality paradox. We're living in a time that puts immense, almost constant pressure on us to build these massive networks. The culture basically screens at us to collect hundreds of connections, to network endlessly, and to broadcast our lives. But for the psychological profile we're examining, this creates a really painful friction. Because the reality? Those casual connections just don't have the bandwidth for genuine support. Juggling 50 casual acquaintances takes a massive cognitive toll. You're remembering birthdays, forcing small talk, maintaining this curated surface image, it is exhausting. While the world pushes for volume, this specific psychological drive is screaming for true intimacy. It creates this wild paradox where doing exactly what society rewards actually leaves this type of person feeling profoundly starved emotionally. If you've ever felt completely alone in a crowded room, well, that's exactly what's happening. The environment is rich in people, but entirely bankrupt in depth. This tension directly informs the social strategy they adopt, which brings us to Section 2, depth over frequency. And this brilliantly illustrates the fundamental contrast and social strategies we're dealing with here. On one side, you have depth, taking massive amounts of time and emotional capital and pouring it into a very small number of people to grow those deep roots. On the flip side, you have frequency, taking that exact same amount of energy and spreading it paper thin across a large number of casual connections. Think of it like a zero-sum game of emotional bandwidth. You only have 100% to give. You can dig deep or you can spread wide, but you can't effectively do both. For the profile we're studying, frequency is totally draining because of the constant context switching. Jumping from one superficial chat to the next just kills their battery. Depth, on the other hand, is profoundly restorative. Just sitting in comfortable silence with someone who truly gets you, that actually recharges their emotional reserves. So, how exactly do those deep roots get planted in the first place? Let's check out Section 3, Why We Trust Slowly. First off, slow trust is not paranoia. It's not being antisocial or aloof. It is a highly deliberate psychological filter. It means building reliance and vulnerability incrementally over time rather than just handing it out because you happen to share a cubicle or go to the same gym class. The source material highlights that it can sometimes take upwards of 200 hours of shared time to transition an acquaintance into a truly close friend. 200 hours! That is a massive investment. For people who prioritize small circles, trust is literally the currency of the realm. It is way too valuable to just hand out casually on day one. So they use time as a stress test to ensure the relationship is actually durable before they fully commit those hard-earned emotional resources. Let's move to and see how this builds, because it's a very structured psychological progression. Step 1 is casual interaction. We all start here. The coffee shop banter, the water cooler chat. But for a depth-focused person, this isn't friendship yet. It's strictly an observation phase. Then we hit Step 2, testing boundaries.
Now, they aren't setting elaborate traps here, they're just quietly, carefully observing real-world behavior over months, maybe even years. How do you react when they share a minor frustration? Do you gossip to them, which means you'll probably gossip about them? Do you respect a simple no? It's only when those daily micro-boundaries are respected consistently that we finally cross into step 3, establishing deep trust. It's a long, highly vetted journey, and it is exactly why they only have the biological and emotional bandwidth to maintain a tiny circle. But why go through all that rigorous testing? The answer sits at the very foundation of this whole framework, in Section 4, prioritizing emotional safety. At the absolute bottom of this psychological profile is one ultimate prize: emotional safety. That is the feeling of absolute, unwavering security that lets a person be completely vulnerable without any fear of judgment or betrayal. Imagine the sheer relief of that, being able to take off all your armor, drop the social mask entirely, and just exist exactly as you are, knowing the other person won't run away or use it against you. For this specific profile, hitting that baseline of emotional safety is the singular goal. It absolutely trumps the desire for popularity, for status, or for a wide social reach. If a relationship isn't going to eventually reach that deep baseline of safety, well, the heavy investment of time and energy just isn't worth it to them. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the objective trade-off happening here. There's no right or wrong approach, just different psychological economics. If you choose the small circles approach, you lock in emotional security and deep, nuanced understanding. But look at what you actively sacrifice. You give up that wide safety net of casual favors, and you lose out on the constant, varied social stimulation of meeting new people. On the other hand, if you opt for large networks, you get that high stimulation, the broad connections, the endless stream of event invites. But in exchange, you sacrifice the guarantee of deep intimacy and absolute emotional safety. We are all quietly conducting this unseen cost-benefit analysis, deciding which currency we value more for our own well-being. Let's tie this all together in our final segment, Section 5, the power of small circles. So the crucial point is this: deep roots weather emotional storms far better than 1,000 scattered leaves. When the skies are clear, casual connections are fun and entirely sufficient. But when a real, devastating crisis hits, say a sudden career collapse, a scary health diagnosis, or a profound personal tragedy, having a massive network of 500 casual acquaintances usually provides very little tangible support. Those are the leaves blowing away in the wind. In those dark moments, it's the slow, trusting, carefully vetted, deeply intimate relationships, those deep roots, that possess the sheer strength to hold you in place. Cultivating depth and fiercely prioritizing emotional safety isn't just a quirky social preference. For many people, it is a highly effective, deeply necessary psychological survival strategy that pays off exactly when it matters most. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. We spend so much of our lives counting the leaves on our branches, focusing on the sheer volume and visibility of our connections. We celebrate follower milestones and massive guest lists. But based on the psychology we've unpacked today, it is really worth turning inward and asking yourself, are the roots of your own social circle truly deep enough to weather the storm? Keep digging deep, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.